Greetings! Today is 5/8/2018. I'm going to be starting talking about page 111 in order to go to 112. So first of all, last night you finished up on 111. That was on 5/7/2018. And you had Mr. Barnett being highly irritated by Cassie stepping out of her place because at this time African Americans weren't thought of as equal to Caucasian Americans. And so you had a woman, probably a mother age of a woman, so maybe she was in her late 20s to 30s, who tried to get Cassie to be quiet when Cassie was upset with Mr. Barnett. And this person was immediately pounced, meaning beat up. This woman was beat up by this man, Mr. Barnett, just because she said something. So let's see what he does. Does he beat up on her physically, or is it verbal? Page 112. "This gal yourn, Hazel?" "No, sir, no, sir," answered the woman meekly, stepping hastily, good words, meekly and hastily, away to show she had nothing to do with me. As I watched her turn her back on me, Stacy emerged and took my hand. "Come on, Cassie, let's get out of here." "Stacy!" I exclaimed, relieved to see him by my side. "Tell him, you know it ain't fair making us wait. She your sister, boy." Notice Cassie still won't shut her mouth. This situation is getting worse and worse. It's as if she doesn't know how dangerous it is at this time. Mr. Barnett spat across the counter. Stacy bit her lower lip and gazed into Mr. Barnett's eyes. "Yes, sir. Then you get her out of here," he said with hateful force. "And make sure she don't come back till your mammy teach her what she is." "I already know what I am," I retaliated, "but I bet you don't know what you are, and I can sure tell you, you're old." Stacy jerked me forward, crushing my hand in effort, and whispered angrily, "Shut up, Cassie." His dark eyes flashed malevolently as he pushed me in front of him through the crowd. As soon as we were outside, I whipped my hand from his. "What's the matter with you? You know he's wrong." Stacy swallowed to flush his anger, then said gruffly, "I know it, and you know it, but he don't know it, and that's where the trouble is. Now come on, before you get us into real mess. I'm going up to Mr. Jameson to see what's happening with Big Mom." "What about TJ?" I called as he stepped into the street. Stacy laughed wryly. "Don't worry about TJ. He knows exactly how to act." He crossed the street sullenly then, his hands jammed in his pockets. I watched him go, but did not follow. Instead, I ambled along the sidewalk, trying to understand why Mr. Barnett had acted the way he had. More than once, I had stopped and gazed over my shoulder at the mercantile. I had a good mind to go back and find out what had made Mr. Barnett so mad. I actually turned once and headed toward the store. Then, remembering what Mr. Barnett had said about my returning, I swung back around, kicking at the sidewalk, my head bowed. It was then that I bumped into Lillie Jean Sims. "Why don't you look where you're going?" she asked huffily. Jeremy and her two younger brothers were with her. "Hey, Cassie," said Jeremy. "Hey, Jeremy," I said solemnly, keeping my eyes on Lillie Jean. "Well, apologize," she ordered. "What? You bumped into me. Now apologize." I didn't feel like messing with Lillie Jean. Had other things on my mind. "Okay," I said, starting to pass. "I'm sorry." Lillie Jean stepped in front of me. "That ain't enough. Get down in the road." I looked up at her. "You crazy? You can't watch where you're going. Get in the road. Maybe that way you won't be bumping into decent white folks with your nasty self." This second insult of the day was almost more than I could bear. Only the thought of Big Ma in Mr. Jameson's office saved Lillie Jean's lip. "I ain't nasty," I said, properly holding my temper in check. "And if you're so afraid of getting bumped, walk down there yourself." I started past her again, and again she got in my way. "Let her pass, Lillie Jean," said Jeremy. "She ain't done nothing to you. She done something to me just standing in front of me." With that, she reached for my arm and attempted to push me off the sidewalk. I braced myself and swept my arm backward out of Lillie Jean's reach, but someone caught it from behind, painfully twisting it and shoving me off the sidewalk into the road. I landed bottom first on the ground. Mr. Sims glared down at me. When my gal, Lillie Jean, says for you to get yourself off the sidewalk, you get off. You hear? Behind him were his sons, R.W. and Melvin. People from the store began to ring the Simses. Ain't that the same little nigger that was cutting back there at Jimmy Lee's? Someone asked. Yeah, she the one, answered Mr. Sims. You hear me talking to you, gal? You apologize to Miss Lillie Jean this minute. I stared up at Mr. Sims, frightened. Jeremy appeared frightened too. I apologized already. Jeremy seemed relieved that I had spoken. She did, Pa. Right now, before y'all come, she did. Mr. Sims turned an angry gaze upon his son, and Jeremy faltered, looked at me, and hung his head. Then Mr. Sims jumped into the street. I moved away from him, trying to get up. He was a mean-looking man, red in the face and bearded. I was afraid he was going to hit me before I could get to my feet, but he didn't. I scrambled up and ran blindly for the wagon. Someone grabbed me, and I fought wildly, attempting to pull loose. Stop, Cassie. Stop, baby, Big Ma said. Stop, it's me. We're going home now. Not 'fore she apologizes to my girl, you ain't, said Mr. Sims. Big Ma gazed at me, fear in her eyes, then back at the growing crowd. She just a child. Tell her, Auntie. Big Ma looked at me again, her voice cracking as she spoke. Go on. Go on, child, apologize. But Big Ma, her voice hardened. Do like I say. I swallowed hard. Go on. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Miss Lillie Jean, demanded Mr. Sims. You're welcome to read ahead to see what happens next. Should she apologize? Is there apology needed? What is Big Ma afraid of?